Okay. Hello, hello. Happy Thursday. Welcome to Inside Out Alignment. Napoleon Hill is an example I'm going to take today, to introduce our guest. It is not about what happens to us. It's not about a condition, a circumstance, but it is our response to what happens in life that makes a difference. And Napoleon Hill, he actually showed this in his book, Think and Grow Rich, where he talked about his son being born deaf and being confirmed by all the doctors that he wasn't going to hear. But he took awareness of the situation, but also set an intention for what he wanted for his son, and that actually brought something very phenomenal because his son still he did hear, and he made a difference in the life of other people who had the same issues he did. So that is a wonderful lesson for all of us today. And today I have the honor to introduce to you Professor Audrey Elegbede.
Elegbede,
Yes.
yeah.
So it's my pleasure and honor to have her on Inside Out Alignment as your host. Thank you so much, Audrey, for being here with us.
Oh,
Welcome.
absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I am too. I love your light. I love your energy. And I just love the flow of everything. Thank you so much. So, Audrey, I just want you to tell us a little bit about yourself. We want to know where that light comes from and, coming here and just enlightening everything. I want that energy to keep going. Come on.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you. Again, thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
So let's see, I think first and foremost, I am, I don't know quite where to start with who I am. That's such a big question, right?
And it's
okay. I love that. So I think professionally, I'm a professor of ethnic studies at our local university here. I am also a certified professional coach. I am a professional speaker, consultant. So I do a number of different things professionally. And then I am also a spouse. I am an active community member. I am a very involved parent. My teenagers might say overly involved. And I really think I'm also a continual student. I think that's a really good way of describing me. I'm always trying to learn new things, even when it looks like, well, you talked about, some of the challenges that we might experience in life. Even when those are difficult, trying to see what am I supposed to be learning from this situation when I can get out of my own way.
Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good synopsis.
Absolutely. 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 And thanks so much for the introduction, for telling us who you are. It is beautiful. Yes, a mother. Yes, a professor. Yes, and a learner. Beautiful. And life is a journey where we learn every single day. We just have to be open to learning. We never learn, there's never like, oh, I've learned enough. There is never enough of us learning, because there is so much to learn in the world, from each other, from circumstances, from conditions, from every day, from a lot of things. There is a lot of things, from our kids, from friends, from family. There is a lot to learn. So, and that's the beauty of life itself.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can stay open to it and
Yes.
and continue to see it as learning as compared to overly difficult challenges or things that you can't benefit from, even when they may be uncomfortable.
Thank
But
you.
we always think about how when we're uncomfortable, that's actually when we have the opportunity for the greatest amount of growth. It doesn't always
Yes.
mean it's pleasant, But ultimately, the growth is amazing, and that can absolutely be the pleasant part, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And I know you've gone through lots of like you've had some challenges in your life and you've thrived over them. And looking at what you're doing today and inspiring, what would you say have been your greatest challenge and how did you go about that?
Oh, it's interesting because I know, one of the things you and I chatted about when we first started talking about
Okay.
whether I would be interested in coming on the podcast, was my experience as a parent of a child on the autism spectrum. And, he's, my goodness, my baby, is going to be turning 18 this year. So not a baby by any means, right? And yet will always be my baby.
Yes.
But I would say in a lot of ways, that has been one of the greater uh, learning opportunities, I'll say, that I've had in my life. I remember when he was, even before we had a diagnosis, um, he didn't get a diagnosis till he was 2 years and 9 months. And that was actually quite early compared to where a lot of folks get their diagnoses. And yet by that point, it was pretty clear there were some significant issues that we were already addressing. Um, and we'd already been seeking support services for him for at least a year by that point.
Okay.
But we still didn't have a diagnosis per se, right? But I think in some ways, while that was quite a struggle, we were not getting sleep, we were dealing with food aversions, lots of different components of his expression of the
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. But in retrospect, I realized a couple of things, which is one, um, he's always right. I just need to figure out how he's right. But there's a component of vantage point, of perspective, that he was always operating in a way that made sense to him. He wasn't acting in a way that didn't make sense. It made sense. It was just my role to help to understand what that was so that he could more appropriately or successfully engage in his world, and his world could more successfully engage with him. But I also realized how my plans for what I had for what my future was going to look like for the next 5, 10, 15 years, that was going to shift. And it actually gave me a lot more freedom than my plans did. My plans were very much driven by what I thought was expected of me, or what I had sort of been socialized to imagine was an appropriate or acceptable path to take. And when I was able to recenter, knowing that he needed support in a way that I hadn't quite anticipated as a new mother, all of the other social, cultural programming, all of that other stuff kind of fell to the side. I just needed to focus in on what was in front of me, which was him,
Yeah.
and make sure that he got what he needed and everything else would fall into place. It really was a lesson in what kind of social expectations, personal expectations, limitations of the expectations, all of those kinds of components had really boxed me in a way that I hadn't realized. But when life threw me a curveball, I could be very resilient in a way that I didn't know. It was really, and I may not have necessarily known it at the time, but in retrospect, I can see that strength now.
Beautiful.
So, yeah.
And how did you feel like when they gave you like the diagnosis, when you finally realized exactly what was going on? How were your feelings? How did you deal with that? And were you able to come out of that and being able to actually set an intention and follow through with that?
It's a really good question. So I've actually, since that time, I've shifted into really working with a lot of parents of children. You know, I do trainings with parents of children with new diagnoses, particularly if there's not something in their community that's supportive or available to them. And I've worked with a lot of parents on that transition. There's just different stages that you go through with as a parent of a child with a different set of needs.
Yeah.
I think initially, it's a really good question. It's a hard question. You know, I think initially I was stunned, at the same time happy to have a diagnosis because it meant I had something to anchor what we were doing to support him. So it was emotionally exhausting. And there's the grief and all of those pieces that can go into it. And at the same time, it gave me a baseline so I could begin to take actionable steps to support him, knowing that we had this diagnosis. Okay, now what? Okay, great. Now what? And you know, one of the things that I learned in working with parents, and I see myself in it as well, is this, there's a part about responding to our children, especially if our children have some additional healthcare needs or special needs of some kind, to responding to our children in a way that is almost like we're always in emergency mode. We're always putting out a fire. We're always, you know, okay, what's the next medical need? What's the next educational need? What's the next service need? Where am I going to need to support and argue and fight to get my child the services that they need? And I learned through my own experience that I often was putting my own needs to the side, that I was responding to the immediacy of this fire on his behalf. And in the process, I kept thinking to myself, when this is done, when I get this settled, then I can go do X, Y, or Z. And yet there was always another fire. And so I was always in this fight or flight mode. I was always in emergency mode. And I wasn't doing the kinds of things that I needed to do to fill my cup from behind. And I would say about, well, maybe 4 or 5 years ago now, it started to catch up. And I'd spent years in emergency mode, years in fight or flight, years trying to hold it together. And we had challenges with school that just wasn't working for any of our systems at home. And with the political environment as it was at the time, it was very contentious. And my son is a young man of color, and so also having that additional stressor of, he was even seeing the news images of young men being murdered at the hands of police. And so he's seeing that, I'm seeing that. We've got these additional challenges with school or healthcare. We've got the political issues. We've had years and years of buildup of always putting out fires. It really became more than was feasible to manage.
Yeah.
And I would say that was when I found coaching, actually. I had a friend of mine who had a coaching practice, and I called her one day, kind of just in a panic. I was sick to my stomach, and I was just like, I don't know what to do right now. I'm feeling just too overwhelmed to move. And I need to move because I need to take care of my family and I need to take care of all these things. Right?
Yeah.
And I will forever be grateful. She said, how is what you're doing right now working for you? And I said, it's not. I can't move today. And I'm sick to my stomach, literally. And she said, okay, if you will trust me and just do as I tell you, we will get you moving. It doesn't mean it's going to be a long range plan, but what you're doing right now is working. So let's get you moving. And then we can figure out what will work for you best. But right now, if you just trust me, we'll get you moving. We'll get you unstuck. Amazing. It was after that, I'm like, okay, I need to be a coach. So that's when I went to go seek training on coaching.
Beautiful, and beautifully said too. Like the lessons, the burnout, the fight and flight mode, and all that, and all coming together, and then you finding the way to actually seek for help.
Yeah.
Yes, because sometimes that is what we really lack. Like we feel like we are stuck and there is no one out there to help us, or we are not even aware of the help we have. So that was a beautiful thing to actually reach out. And it is one of the basis or one of the reasons why Inside Out Alignment is here, to let people know that they are not alone. There are many people who are going through circumstances and situations that are also as difficult as theirs, and they have been able to, get help and get that assistance, get that hand, that partner in belief, helping them out to see through their problems and actually creating something amazing out of the chaos or whatever situation it is, which is the beauty of all things. And it's just letting them know that, you worked through that path. Yes, Audrey, you did work through that path. And today you're using, your experience, what you went through, what you learned, you're using that to make a difference in the life of so many other people. And that alone is so awesome. That is what the world needs. That is what we are out here for, to support each other, to make sure we are uplifting, that we are giving what we have, that we are sharing. And thank you so much for being vulnerable and really, giving us those insights of your personal experience. It's not usually easy to have people, tell their personal story in such a way. So I'm so honored and thankful that you went that deep to actually bring that out to us. Thank you so much.
Oh no, I appreciate it. I will say that connection is so critical. I totally agree with your assessment of the importance of that. That if we and our authenticity is where we
Hmm.
really have our strength. You know,
Yeah.
folks will sometimes say, well, is that vulnerability weakness? And my response is no. Like that's where our real strength comes from. That's where that's where the magic happens. That when we can really get in touch with our own, we can be reflective and we can get in touch with our own vulnerabilities. We really see, oh my goodness, look at all of the things I've done.
Yeah.
Look at all that I can do. And look at all I can bring, right?
Yeah.
Um, but sometimes it takes someone else who also believes in you to partner with you and just nudge you and remind you,
Yeah.
oh yeah, no, I know you got this. Right now, you just need a little support, but you got this. You don't,
Yeah.
I'm just here to bolster. I'm just here to uplift. And and that there are those folks. Um, it's just a matter of finding your folks.
Yeah.
Um, but there's so much strength in being able to be vulnerable and being authentic. And it also relieves you of a lot of that social conditioning. You know, when I
Hmm.
was talking earlier about the pieces that what I thought I was supposed to do, right? What I thought was the appropriate route, what I thought was expected of me. But when you can step into that authenticity, when you can step into that vulnerability, that social conditioning, that should language kind of steps away. There's not a lot of power in should. There's not a lot of power in need to. There's an awful lot of power in, oh, this feels right. Or, oh, I want to do that. Oh my goodness, that's just gleeful, right?
Yeah.
Um, but when you don't, when you're not able to see that, and all you can hear are the shoulds and the needs to and the have to, it's hard to step out of that. But there are absolutely folks that can partner with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you have several practices that you usually do to get yourself, going, and that helps you like really stay in touch of yourself and maybe your goals and whatever you've got. And mostly, I am so thankful that you actually brought, that up, like being in that space where you were not sure and then you actually went out and seek for that help, because it's when we take care of ourselves, then we are able to take care of other people. Self-care is usually not being selfish. It's because with the strength that we have, then you can give something you don't have. If you're stressed, if you are in that fight and flight mode, that's exactly what you're going to give out. Even the things that you're doing, it's not going to be, that energy is not going to match, in an authentic way.
Yes.
Yeah. So being in that position where you take care of yourself, and you're coming from that place of peace, of love, of knowing that yes, you can do this, and and being yourself and working towards it, that time you have more clarity and you'll be being even more creative. So that's really, really beautiful. And I just thought about it, when I thinking about what you just said, I'm like, wow, that is so awesome. Yeah.
Well, no, I appreciate that because you're absolutely right. There's that because of what I experienced, not only have I learned to reach out when I need help,
Hmm.
I think I am more readily available to people because I'm fuller. I'm more grounded,
Hmm.
and I have more strength because I'm not in that fight or flight mode, and
Definitely.
therefore I have more to offer. Um, And it does, when I put that energy out, people come back with that same kind of energy. It's just this amazing kind of attraction piece, right? And you're at the point about self-care is also really critical, right? I mean, every morning I try to do a little bit of meditation, a little bit of Reiki, a little gratitude journaling, um, some EFT or tapping, and then a little bit of yoga. And they vary in terms of really how much time each day. But I find that by getting myself back into a centered space, physically, mentally, that gives me the bandwidth to be more flexible over the course of my day, so that I can adjust when the trials and tribulations do come, more smoothly, and that when I do, then they're not amping up my stress because I was able to adjust. And so ultimately then I have greater bandwidth to support growth, and trying to see it in that growth perspective as compared to a burdened perspective.
Yeah. And so when you talk about this meditation, EFT, I know I learned about EFT, I think it was like 2 years ago. Yeah, I wasn't really aware of it. Can you get a little bit into that? I know most people know more about that meditation and, yoga and all that. So if you can maybe enlighten us a little bit more about EFT, that would be great.
Sure. Sure. Well, so I do a variety of kinds of meditation, right? But with EFT, it's the idea of using pressure points. So the side of the hand, the top of the head, the eyebrow, the eye side, the bottom, the lip, the chin, and the collarbone, and then under the arm. And by going through a series of points and talking yourself through, and there are apps, there are YouTube folks that do EFT or tapping. You can actually, it's a way of tapping into the sympathetic nervous system that gives us some greater flexibility to manage some of our stresses. And we can actually talk our way through, okay, I'm feeling stressed about, and you name it, and you say, I'm feeling stressed about, and these are the things I'm stressed about, and this is why it's stressing me, and these are the ideas I'm having about it, and oh my gosh, I'm so very stressed about it. Oh my goodness, okay, and now how do I want to think about it? And then you walk yourself through how you could think about it and what would benefit you in the process. And you go through the series a couple of times, and my whole household has actually discovered. Our little one has discovered it's helpful. My son on the spectrum has also discovered that meditation is a little too quiet. It's a little too slow. He can't quite sit still for 10 full minutes on his own. But if he's very hyper stressed about something, kind of perseverating a bit, this is more active and it feels more engaged.
Right.
And he can activate an app that we have for him. And he'll go, I'm stressed, Mom, I'm stressed. I'm gonna go tap. Okay, go. But it's also about, it's given him a tool.
Yes.
To be responsive rather than reactive. Yes. He doesn't have to be stuck. He has a tool that he knows works to shift gears and shift his own energy about something. Love that. Yes. That's a lifelong skill. I think in some ways Reiki does much of that for us too as a family.
Okay.
That energy work is just, it's working with the electromagnetic field that we all have as individuals, and And my son on the spectrum actually became certified as a Reiki master this summer.
Oh, beautiful.
And he actually really enjoys working with animals, probably more so than other folks. But he really enjoys working with animals. And so he's also taken some additional training in animal Reiki. So just some, but I started doing Reiki with him. He had a Reiki session at one point, and he took a nap. I was like, you haven't had a nap since you were 18 months old. What are you doing? Napping. And he was so relaxed with the Reiki session. It's like, you took a nap? He said, Mom, I took a nap. So I went and got Reiki trained because I'm like, if he'll take a nap, then that tells me it's working.
Right, right. It relaxes the nerves and all that, and you feel, and yes.
And if it works, then I'm going to do it for him, right?
Yeah.
And then I found out how much it worked for me. So, really, again, when you fill your cup.
Yes. Wow. That is awesome, especially when it's not just you, as a family, you guys, everybody find their little, something that works with them, and they actually know where to go to when they feel that need to, that is beautiful. Like having a routine, and being able to respond as you said, and not being reactive. And one thing I also liked about when you're talking about tapping is the way you tap in. It shows, first of all, you acknowledge the situation, and then you set an intention. Mm-hmm. Then you look at the outcome, and then you take in the action towards that outcome. So that's really, really, really good too. I like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's great. Mindfulness practice. What would you say about us as humans today, about our level of compassion, mindfulness, in your experience? Because I think everybody have their little personal experience depending on those around them and, their life and everything. Yeah, what would you say about our level of compassion, our kindness, and being mindful of others just like ourselves? What would you say is, where would you say we are at this time?
Well, you know how we were talking earlier about that attraction piece,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you put something out, you discover that it starts coming back to you.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, as I have worked on a practice of building compassion and greater authenticity and greater vulnerability, I've very much benefited from others giving that back to me.
Yeah.
I also find that I see folks with much less compassion sort of falling to the side of me. And I don't know if it's because you mentioned our energy levels and how we engage, right? And so it's not in alignment. And so I see folks, the more compassion I have, the more I find alignment with others that have high levels of compassion and authenticity and vulnerability. And I have found that folks that don't have that same level, we don't click, or we're not connecting, or we're sort of passing each other by. And I say that, and as I say that, I keep thinking, but then there are probably those that have a lot more compassion than me, and they're saying, she's not quite to my level yet in terms of, so that's why we're not connecting. And but from where I am, I feel more of that coming my way as I put more of that out there. Now, and so I'm just all the more excited to keep putting more out there, getting more of that back. I also I have a feeling for me that when I see uh, folks that maybe are struggling in a lot of ways, I actually have more compassion for them too. Um, it doesn't necessarily mean I need to let some of that uh, some of those hard feelings or struggles become a part of who I am, but
Yeah.
I can have compassion for their struggles and
Yeah.
challenge. Um, I am I'm really struck actually by what I see as increasing levels of compassion and also increasing levels of resistance. And I'm feeling this very bifurcated society in a way that's making me a little anxious. Um, but I, but I'm absolutely a believer that love and compassion and authenticity win out.
Yes.
And so, while there might be that struggle, that's not where I want to put my energy.
Yes.
So I'm choosing to put my energy here in this compassion box, this compassion zone, um, and really seeing what I can do to
Yeah.
build that.
Yeah. And you say it so beautifully because sometimes we tend to maybe be a little judgmental, oh that, this they're like that or whatever. But sometimes you don't know what people have gone through. You don't know what they've
Yeah.
learned, throughout their life. You don't know where their perspective, where they're coming from. And that is where becoming like really being compassionate, as you just said, still having compassion for them comes in because we don't know what is happening. So we can't just really judge and be like, no, no, I'm better than that, or you could have done better. Is you cannot give something you do not have. You can only give what you have. And it's until you
Absolutely.
come to that awareness and being in that place where you see, okay, this is the right thing for me to do, or this is what is bringing me peace, or whatever, you won't be able to give that. And becoming really conscious of that on a daily basis. Not saying that, we are human and we'll always make mistakes. That happens. But it's about catching ourselves up and go out and be like, okay, how is this serving me? You know,
Yes,
yeah, how is this serving
absolutely.
me? How do I feel with this? How are my emotions, doing this? You'll feel it. If it's truth, that voice of truth, will you actually feel it? You will know if that's the right thing for you to do because, our feelings never lie to us. It's
Mm-hmm.
just
Mm-hmm.
being recognizing that and, and choose the right path. It's not always easy, but it's the intention and the direction that we're ready to take that really matters.
Well, and that intuition too,
Hmm.
right? That says,
Yes,
"Oh yeah, no, that's the
that
thing
is
right there. That's the thing."
right.
Um,
Being
that's
attentive.
that's the part that I would argue that when I was in my really dark spot,
Hmm.
right? Okay, I could even feel it in my body, right? I mean, it was here. I was here all the time. And if my friend hadn't had compassion for me at that moment, I might not have had that partner to show me that it was possible to get out of that,
Yeah.
right? And then help me see intuitively, oh, yes, absolutely, that's the direction I should go. Because one of the pieces of that is again that socialization will sometimes, or the training that we have, or the shoulds or the have tos or the expected tos that we learn, that are really, they're all around us.
Hmm.
How much do we end up turning off our own intuitive awareness because we get so much in our head and what we've been told we're supposed to want, even if it's not what we know internally. And then you have that disconnect. And if you have that disconnect, very often our training, our external training tells us, okay, go with your head because you can't trust your intuition. Versus if we were to maybe give more validity to our intuition, it might allow us to turn off some of that programming that we get.
Definitely.
And say, oh no, this is what feels right. And then following that. Now, we all have to, make a living, and we all have to be responsible. It can't just all be about just feeling good. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I mean, but in the same way that self-care, as you were talking about earlier, self-care isn't just about bubble baths and chocolate cake.
No.
Self-care is about discipline. And I don't mean that in a harsh component, but discipline as in taking care of yourself, doing the things that you need to do to be your best self. Having the discipline to know that maybe that piece of chocolate cake might taste good, but it's not going to be long range a good plan for me. I'm going to be up all night, or I'm not going to feel good with that much sugar at a time, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so in the process, that there's such a growth that can come from knowing how to take care of yourself and what you know to be true and positive, and get that intuitive hit, and then building on that. Oh, it's just this kind of amazing opportunity, right? It just snowballs.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who is out there now and still thinking like, I've tried everything and it's just not working? Life is so stressful. I don't see any path. I'm just like in a dark room and I can't find any way. What would you say to that person today?
Oh, that's a really good question. So the coach in me wants to dig into that. The coach in me wants to ask, okay, so what is that? Where is that coming from? Where is that coaching, that dark room? What is that? What seems to be limiting your ability to get out of that dark room? What are the things you're telling yourself in that state? But then also, so my own coach training, actually, there's this amazing tool. I went through coach training through the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, and it's one of the top coaching programs in the country, and it's a International Coaching Federation certified program, and that kind of thing. And there's this amazing tool that we use, which is the 7 levels of energy awareness, that actually gives us a chance to look at some of those, feeling like you're in a dark room, feeling that hopelessness, feeling that anger, that loss, and saying, okay, if you are here, how do we get you a little bit out of that space? How do we help you? It's hard. There's a reason why you're there. And maybe there's some real protective mechanisms going on right now to safeguard you from some of that real hurt that's even underneath all of that. How can we help you see the power and the strength in that, and partner you with somebody that gives you a little bit of lift? Because from here, you can't see the bigger picture. When you're in those places of hurt and pain and anger, that narrows our lens, because then you're in fight or flight, right? Fight or freeze, right? Well, from there, you're in emergency mode. You're in adrenaline mode. You can't see beyond that. And that makes perfect sense then, that you can't see outside that wall or outside that room. So how do we help you figure that part out and see how that has served you now? And then imagine, what would you like? And then partner with you to help you find those steps to get to that goal that you have. You have it in you, you know what it might be, but sometimes it's scary to even imagine, oh, there's that out there, but I'm here. And if I can't see beyond these walls, it hurts too much to imagine that really amazing goal. So how do we try to crack that door? And I would say that's where, for me, coaching was this transformational. It just busted open doors that I hadn't imagined. And I think that's what drove me then to want to go into that field as well.
Yeah. It's beautiful when we find direction, because sometimes it's like you find yourself like, I don't have what it takes, or yes, that is, sometimes people even know that's where I want to go, but they feel like they are not enough.
Yes.
They don't have what it takes. They feel like they don't have the tools, or they feel like, I've never done that before. You know, those voices of fear, the voice of doubt, they all are so always there. But when you have tools around you that you can use to, like, you know, you acknowledge those, but at the same time use those tools to change the frequency of your thinking. Yeah, it goes a long way. And I think that is what you coaches do out here, to make people understand that that might be happening, but that's not the end of it, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That there's always a way, no matter how dark, no matter how low we might feel, there is always a way. All we need to ask is the right questions.
And the path may not be the path you think it's going to be.
Right. So true. Yeah.
The path may not be the path you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
But sometimes that means the path is actually better.
Yes. Because sometimes you start somewhere, then it takes you somewhere else that you've never really, you like, what? Yeah.
No, it's great. And you don't know, right? And it can take you in places that your imagination didn't even know existed.
Yes. Yeah. Because it's about taking that first step. What you just use what you have where you are, and, you know, start from there. And when you start from there, then, you know, a little bit, you know, just as you said, those crack in that. Yeah. So I think seeking that help is very important, because that's like the first step, and then things start showing up that you never thought even existed before. So this is an opportunity for me, as I usually do, to actually call people and, you know, audience or listeners, and say, there is help, there is hope, there are many people who've walked, you know, in situations similar, not exactly like yours, but in similar situations, and have proven structure of support to help you, you know, get out of there and create something really amazing for your life. It depends. It might be your health and well-being. It might be in your relationship. It might be in your, you know, your vocation. It might be in many other areas of your life. Maybe it's time and money freedom that you would love. So what is it? You know, when we were little, we usually had like these big dreams. I want to be this, I want to be that. And because we felt like we could be anything. But when we grow up, it's just like we just lose everything. And I think the conditions and everything else, they just like make us feel like there are so many things we cannot do, but they are still there and we still have it in us to be able to do that. And having that support system is a blessing. So this is an opportunity to actually let you guys know Audrey's here. She's a coach, and
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
she would be happy to hold your hand and be that partner of belief and help you take that ride, take you out of that dark room, that doubt and that fear of whatever is out there, and help you get deep into that longing, that thing that is making you feel so uncomfortable. Because sometimes it's because we are not taking, like, I have this experience that I usually, if I'm taking the right actions, I feel so awesome.
Yes.
But when
Yes.
I'm not doing it, oh my goodness, I am so vulnerable. And I feel tense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But when you are doing those things that are making you like really expand and you are learning, it's in sync with your real essence. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness.
Mm-hmm.
You feel the
And you have more
difference.
energy.
Yes, you feel the difference. The joy, the peace, the energy, as you just said, and it's amazing. And it's a great place to find oneself. And that is where you're more compassionate, more loving,
Mm-hmm.
more forgiving, more humble. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful place to find yourself. So don't let this slide. Take action, take action, take action, take action. Just reach out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
just reach out
Absolutely.
and see how you can be helped. Yeah. Audrey, it's
And
been a wonderful. Oh, go ahead.
no, 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 that's fine.
You sure?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say it's not that that first step is an easy one.
It's not.
That first step can be such, but but it it really is sort of that first act of of real self-compassion
Mm-hmm.
and self-care and self-love. Just that first act, that first step of saying, okay, I'm going to do this for me. Even, just something small,
I
even
love that.
builds and then builds and then builds and then builds. And then the more energy you got, the more you got to give others too.
Yes.
It's this amazing, but it's hard to get started if you're in that room.
Yeah.
And so I want to acknowledge that that's a really hard place. But if you can just take that first step.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Audrey. Thank you for speaking from your heart. Thank you for sharing with us. It's been a pleasure. It's been an honor to be in your light because you do shine. I like the way you come out and you are, not holding it back and just being you. And I think I love that because I just want people to know that we are all humans. We go through a lot and it's okay. And there is no one person in this world that has a perfect life.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how you see people shining and everything. It's just that people have tools and they have many things that they do, to help them go through that and still shine. So take that with you today. It was a beautiful time being with you. I don't know if you have
Thank you.
anything else that you want to share or any last words for the listeners and, for us to close out. What would you say to your 21-year-old self?
Oh, my 21-year-old self.
Yes.
Oh, 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 let go of the perfectionism. Oh, let it go, let it go, let it go, let it go. Let the perfectionism go, because you lose so much of the opportunity in the process.
Yeah.
Oh, just enjoy it. Oh, just enjoy it. That's what I would say. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. Thanks again. Thanks again.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
Yes, it is. I look forward to having you another time because this was really
Absolutely.
fun. Yes. Yeah. So, listeners, we've come to the end, and we are so thankful for having Audrey here with us. And I want to say your condition, your circumstance does not determine your outcome. You have what it takes. Audrey is
Mhm.
here. Just know that you are enough. You have what it takes, and you are not alone. You are not, you are absolutely not alone. Just take that courage, and as Audrey just said, self-love, think about the results, what you would love, and let it spark you and give you that, you know, uh, that energy to take that little first step. Yeah. So reach out. Audrey's here. I'm going to have her description. I mean, on the description box, I'm going to have her information down there so you can reach out directly when you listen to this episode, because this is episode 14. This is it's always great talking, and it's always great having wonderful guests here. Thanks again. Everybody have a wonderful and blessed week. Thanks again. So we are at the end of this recording.